right, and for more on Trudeau's start as Prime Minister and the Canadian economy, I'm joined by Diane Francis. She's an author and a journalist and a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council in Washington, D.C. Diane, good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
So, Diane, after 10 years, Harper's Conservative government has been replaced by the Liberal Trudeau. What can we expect to be the biggest economic change coming from the Trudeau administration?
Well, I think the big change is going to be that you're going to see them let deficits grow for the next 3 years to finance some of their infrastructure projects that they want to do. They haven't stipulated what infrastructure projects they want to do, but he has said that they're going to spend a ton of money, so let's hope they spend it wisely. I think that as far as monetary policy, you know, Canada will pretty much stay the course, and the initiatives include really mostly what I call soft initiatives. This is not an economic agenda that you're seeing. This is about legalizing marijuana. This is about giving more money to the middle class, cutting back. This is about letting deficits rip regardless of the economic fallout.
And that's a big issue, Diane, because those deficits, as you said, he plans on running into a 3-year deficit. He says he's going to reject austerity, spend billions of dollars on infrastructure projects. Was this just election talk? Is this really what we can expect him to do, especially given that Canada is now technically in a recession?
Well, I think, Michelle, the truth is that he may have promised this ages ago, that he didn't mind putting the government into a deeper hole, although its debt ratio is not that bad among developed countries. But as you point out, we are in a recession, and it's going to deepen, is my guess, unless you see oil and commodity prices return anytime soon, and I don't. And the country, you know, and the country investors don't. So we've had a huge flight of capital out of the Canadian dollar in just the last few days because people are pretty much taking the view that commodity prices, particularly oil, are not going to come back too quickly. And so I think he was going to have to run deficits anyway.
Well, as you mentioned, oil, commodity prices have been tanking. Oil is arguably the single most important part of Canada's economy. And Trudeau and his new finance minister, Bill Morneau, they have to deal with that slowing economy, as you just said. So what is it that they can do to try and stimulate?
Well, I think that, you know, you have to try and get the stranded oil sands oil out of Alberta. And there's a number of schemes that would do that. But, you know, it's pretty clear that this Prime Minister is against having a pipeline go through British Columbia. But you can go north. Now, the other problem that's hurt Canada, I would say, in the oil patch is that the Keystone door has been slammed shut. Obama's made it very clear that in his term of office, he's going to turn it down. That is huge. That's 1 million barrels a day of export income of oil. Just do the calculation. That's an enormous blow to the future prosperity of the country.
Indeed, and oil a big problem. General slowdown of economic growth around the globe. How is that hitting Canada?
Well, China is slowing, has slowed a bit, and that hasn't helped. And China's slowing hasn't directly impacted Canada because our trading relationship directly is very small. But China's slowdown has, of course, put negative pressure downward on all commodity prices, which is good for people that still need them, but not good for those like us that produce them. The only bright sector in Canada is agriculture. Pardon?
Does it matter really who's in charge if this is the situation that the commodity slump is so severe? Is there a difference in policies between the Conservative or Liberal administration that can lift Canada out of this as long as the global commodity picture remains the same?
Well, the only thing that can lift Canada out of the problem with its stranded oil is to make it not stranded anymore. And that is somehow something has to be done to get that oil to Asian markets on the West Coast somehow. And that's a big concern. The other issue I think that's really of concern to the business community is the Paris climate change talks. And Canada is a big polluting country. And we have to pollute in order to make commodities. I mean, that's the nature of it. he is talking a very green agenda. That could really hurt us economically as well. So these are a lot of the realities facing him. He has a lot of headwinds, you know,
Right.
and a lot of things that happen won't be his fault.
Well, in the meantime, in trying to stimulate things, Bank of Canada has cut interest rates twice this year. The Canadian dollar, the loonie, has depreciated against the US dollar and some other currencies. Diane, do you see further depreciation as a strategy to boost exports and to perhaps encourage domestic consumption of some local Canadian goods?
Well, I think the infrastructure spend of $46 billion is a big stimulus domestically for the economy, and he was going to do that anyway. So that's probably going to help somewhat. The Bank of Canada is very eager to stimulate, so I don't see monetary policy tightening in any way, shape, or form. So I think our dollar is headed even lower than it is, which at the end of that tunnel is a bright light because it means our manufacturers and our exporters also get a bump up. We produce gold and oil and we earn US dollars, but if the Canadian dollar goes down, our costs in relationship to that goes down. It gives us some relief in terms of our resource exports.
But in the meantime, the slower dollar has seen a capital flight. A new report finds that money is leaving Canada at the fastest pace in the developed world. Why exactly is that happening? And what can the government do about that?
Well, the government can't do anything about that. We don't have currency controls like China and other countries do. We got rid of those quite a while ago. But this is not big foreign direct investment money, you know, closing factories and picking up and leaving the country on a long-term basis. This is the hot money, so to speak. This is the investor money. And investors who have really backed the Canadian oil industry and commodity industries are saying, you know what, we're cashing in. We're going to wait and see if there's an upturn.
What major surprise or major difference are you expecting for Trudeau to do that you think may not be the best for the economy?
Well, I think the infrastructure is a good idea. I think he won't do anything dramatically in veering in one direction or the other. He's just fooling around at the edges of the tax system. And the big one is going to be legalization of marijuana. And that sounds silly, but you know, we have a trading partner and a border that we're trying to open up more to trade and tourism. And I can guarantee you that if Canada legalizes marijuana, that border is going to get tighter, not looser, because the Americans are doing it here and there, but they're not doing it on a wholesale basis. So I can just see the lineups at the border with people. We're going to get marijuana tourism and people having trouble getting back in the U.S. I mean, it's, you know, I think this has to be carefully studied and thought through.
All right. Well, he's got a lot on his plate. Thank you, as always, for your insight, Diane Francis, author, journalist, and senior fellow at the Atlantic Council in Washington, D.C.